Oh, hi! So that's it, we've done it, guys. We've managed to read the entirety of the Shadow and Bone Trilogy and also the Six of Crows duology, and we're finally ready for the new series coming out on Netflix in April. I am very, very excited. I've been running around BookTube trying to not be spoiled for the Crooked Kingdom that I've been reading recently, which was our last stone before the big finale of the series. Trying not to spoil myself too much. I think I kind of got a little spoils here and there, but I've mostly managed to stay on track and just read. This has been such a journey, man. Like, I was doing audiobook for the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I managed to get my hands on this one from the library and proceeded to order or kind of like reserve the Crooked Kingdom, so the second one of this duology, in my library. It never arrived, so someone's obviously like taking a long time to read it, but I've had to read it on my reader thing instead of like an actual book, and that was a bit sad. The good news is I've actually really enjoyed the Six of Crows. I thought it was really well-rounded. I can definitely see why it got picked up. The whole Shadow and Bone thing, I also understand why they wanted to gel it with. I understand it's also quite a well-loved book, and reading booktubers like the Booklier, for example, who has been doing like rereads and kind of like see what she felt when she first read it and then rereading it now. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it spoke a lot to younger selves, I guess. Like when it first came out, I would have probably really, really liked it. And now with a bit of like step back and being nearly 25, I can definitely say that there are some stuff that I can notice much better. But the Six of Crows was great. And to be honest with you, I was so taken by all the characters and all the plot and everything that I've tried not to pay too close attention to all of the little pet peeves that people had about these books. What can I say about the Crooked Kingdom? It's been a little bit all over the place, and it didn't feel as structured as the Six of Crows. I feel like this was really well orchestrated. The first one was definitely, you know, a couple of stunts to get you into the way things are working, especially with this gang. It was introducing all the characters, and then you get the big finale, the big stunt, the big heist, and you kind of get what's going on. Whereas I thought the Crooked Kingdom there was a lot of like Tom and Jerrying action going on there, people chasing each other. The crows had to rescue some people, then they had to abduct others, try and get their money back. They had to kind of like get revenge. There's been a lot of things going on. Everybody's kind of really sour, and I kind of enjoyed it, but I felt like the pace was definitely quite different. I felt myself actually shipping all the couples. I actually enjoyed that everybody gets paired up at the end. I know it's a bit J.K. Rowling-y, kind of Harry Potter-y, when everyone finds its perfect match. But this wasn't too bad because I felt like the romance wasn't as big. Perhaps maybe in the Crooked Kingdom a bit bigger, because you've already built up quite a lot those relationships, and you want to kind of like the end of the book be this is what happens, their story finishes like this. Or just an open ending, but at least knowing where the character stands with each other. And in terms of romance, but also in terms of friendship, actually. I definitely found it very, very interesting. So that was a good side. I was surprised a lot of the times. There has been end of chapters when I was left kind of like gobsmacked. So what can I say? I've cried a lot, especially at the end. I think I cared so much that I actually managed to get myself stuck in and sucked into the story enough for when something tragic happens or when something beautiful happens. It was streaming, man. I was just like, oh. It was horrible, but it was great. It was a great thing. I actually really enjoy crying when I'm watching something or when I'm reading something, when I'm investing myself into a story. And it hasn't happened in a while. That was definitely welcomed. So there's not a whole lot of thing to say about the story in itself, because it felt really close to the first one. It was just more stunts, more heights, more let's break into this to get this piece of information or this item so that we can do this and that. It just felt very continuous. It felt that it was the same author, the same story. There wasn't any break. It just felt all very well gelled in. I think if those two books were just like crammed into one massive like volume, I wouldn't have necessarily felt like there were two different entities. I think they gelled pretty well together, so that was all right. I really liked the redemption arc for Kaz, actually. And I know a lot of people might say that, you know, oh, but he turns good at the end, like what a cliche. I actually really liked it. His trust in Inej and his like love for her and how he kind of like slowly falls is definitely helpful for us to understand his progression, and it definitely helps with him just slowly getting back to like a normal human being, if you know what I mean. I think it's just like he's doing this like incredible work on himself to like combat this PTSD that he has, combat this like anger and all the grief. And I think it's very noble of him, and I think acknowledging his feelings for Inej and making them something important, even though he's trying to fight them off the whole time, still you can see the progression, you can see. And I think in the last confrontation, this is going to be a little spoiler, so if you don't want to listen to this, scoot off a bit. But I think when the final confrontation with the villain for Kaz, which is like Pekka Rollins, like mainly, I know Jan van Heck is definitely an antagonist as well, but Pekka Rollins is our main man. When he confronts him, and he's really, really cruel, especially with saying, oh, you know, I've abducted your son, your baby boy son, and he's like in a coffin, like buried in a field, like screaming for you to pick him up. You know, you see all the darkness of this character, and you can see Bardugo in all her splendor, you can see like her twisted mind. And it's just really nice to see like the length she's going to, because she's not afraid. It gripped me, you know? I think, as the French would say, it took me in the guts. Like, it grabbed me. I think she put her long fingers in my guts and just like hold on to there. And I was like, bloody hell, Lee, cool. It was nice that in the end, he didn't do it. He just kind of like played with Pekka's emotion, and he just like played him for a fool and broke him. And it was nice because he's never wanted to kill Pekka. You know, he's just wanted to break him down, like break his entire empire. So killing his son, you know, it would have been another story like Jan van Heck. He would have probably gotten another heir. But breaking his empire means that now Pekka doesn't have an empire to give. And I think it's got a much deeper than simply just killing this like little boy. And in terms of Inej's perspective, it gave this dimension of redemption, this redemption arc that I think we all know and love. But also it meant that she was like, okay, you've actually progressed during these 2 books, and you're not going to stay this like brooding dark guy that does terrible things, because I think I would have been disappointed if indeed he killed that child like in such a horrible manner. It would have been no growth, and he had growth, because at the end he manages to make peace with himself and try and get better for the person he loves, and he's not going to just let Inej go because he's too scared. He's going to actually try and work on himself, and I think it's actually very admirable. So that's kind of it for the Crooked Kingdom. I didn't want to get like too extensive on all the bits. I definitely cried for like Wylan, I cried for Matthias, I cried for all of them at the end. It was just a bit like of a tear fest, but it was really nice. So now in terms of the series, what am I thinking? So I know that a lot of people have been discussing the series and what can potentially happen. I know that the showrunner has been saying that this trailer that we've all seen doesn't feature the crows too much, and he said that it's because a lot of the scenes actually kind of spoil the story a little bit. So they try to just give us a little nuggets of goodness so that we can kind of like hold on to our seats until it actually happens. Which kind of brings me to think this whole theory about having them showing the crows as past. So right, the thing with the Six of Crows and how some people actually dislike it is that there's a lot of flashbacks. I think they're really well woven into the story, and it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I think I like it better because it gets me closer to the characters and I can understand where they come from. But I know a lot of people really dislike that. However, this theory of having those little bits crammed together in the first season, so have the progression of the Shadow and Bone first series and first book kind of thing, so we establish all of the things, and in parallel having our crows individually and kind of like meeting each other and see like, you know, their past. It's not stupid. I think it's got a lot of good points. I think it's quite a likely thing. I don't know if they change. I know Bardugo is actually working on this, by the way. So, you know, her word will be put in there. So it's not going to be like a complete restructuring of the story. But changing the story too much might just, if it's done well, a lot of new audiences might just like the story and be like, oh, this is cool. A lot of the already existing audience might be kind of like, oh, this is a bit different, but fine. But if it's done badly, a lot of people are going to be pissed off, because then people won't want to watch the rest. You know how some adaptations have been a bit dubious. I'm always kind of like tiptoeing on this, thinking what is going to be the third process, what is going to be the script editing process, what elements of a story are they going to put there, and what are they going to change? Because I think that's the main problem with certain adaptation is that they have been taking a lot of liberties with certain pieces that aren't necessarily justified, just make a lot of people a bit unhappy. As much as I know, we've got to be true to ourselves. TV, film, this industry is very much about money, for sure. It is about art, but mainly about money. It's financial, investments. People have to have like their investment back and etc. However, I also think that there is a lot of people in the industry that are readers. They have been reading certain books, or they've just read it and thought it was amazing and needed to be adapted. And those people, they come and they like build up the ranks of this entire like audience that have been reading this book, like us with The Crows, for example, with this entire Grisha verse. And we've got expectations, and I'm sure a lot of people in the industry are like quite eager to be as truthful to the book as possible, or just like tweak it around to just make it visually interesting, fast-paced, not to waste time and money, which is a very, very big focus, but also just keep true to the story because that's what has made them dream. And the same as us. Adaptation and people working in script editing, they're also readers. At the end of the day, we're all readers. That's what we do. I think, bringing them to Ravka would make a lot of sense, but it would change a lot of things. And for the adaptation of the Crooked Kingdom part, which is like entirely based in Ketterdam, so we'd have to move a little bit around being in Ravka and being in Ketterdam, or maybe bring the Ravkans to Ketterdam for that kind of like side of the things. Or there could just be like a side-along parallel kind of narrative and have them like almost never meet until the end, where they kind of try and gel this whole auction for Kuwait. Sorry again if I mispronounce it. This whole big auction, and obviously the Ravkans are there, but it takes place a bit later, so obviously Alina's meant to be dead, so maybe that's a reason why Nikolai is gone. There's a lot of like stories to be woven. It's a bit difficult. So there's also been quite a lot of speculation on how things will look. I think in terms of narrative, I'll try and like bring up a bit of what I think when the series will come out, and a bit of like my outlook on the industry to see what I think about it. But in terms of aesthetic, I definitely think that they're kind of nailing it so far from what I've seen. I mean, the tavern scenes, the little nuggets that we get from the Crows seems to be quite aligned with what people have been imagining. The palace in Os Alta is fine. It's definitely much more sober than what Bardugo's been writing. But then again, the palace was meant to be like stupidly rich with loads of like shiny diamonds in the walls and paintings of peacocks with gold. I mean, from what I've seen in the trailer, it's kind of like light academia kind of. There's a time where Genya is walking around like two sets of doors, and it looks a lot like Versailles, which is like very much like a light academia, very much like loads of big windows, ivory panels with loads of gold and stuff. Aesthetic will be definitely gathering a lot of like Russian influence. Yeah, the aesthetic, not only the snow, but also the like imperial palace, all of that kind of like aesthetic that Bardugo wanted to put in her books will probably be transcribed there quite a lot. I've also quite liked the cast. So that's kind of it for my little Crooked Kingdom review and end of things. I think we're all waiting for more information and seeing how many booktubers have made like little reviews and little things on the series, and me still reading it. I was kind of trying to keep it quite concise, but we will definitely talk about it a lot more when the series will come out. So that's it, you guys. I will try and get back to my long read of like the last few months, which was the Bone Trilogy. I'm halfway through the last book, which is quite good. I'm very excited to get like a big review together and like what I thought about the trilogy, but I'm definitely very chuffed. But anyway, thank you for listening to this little sum up, and I will see you soon. Bye!